I'm going to tell you a story about how my client almost shot themselves in the foot because of a bidding war. Now, let me start by saying in any market, there can be a bidding war, but really, I just like to call it demand. And so even if a property sits for 1 day or 30 days, the second you get more than one offer on the table, everything changes. Because now the seller has options and you're not the only one. In this case, the property had just hit the market and it was a decent one. So they had quite a bit of showings. We decided to write an offer on the property right away because my client loved the home. And based on everything else we had been looking at, it was a 10 out of 10. Although we were the first offer, the agent informed me that there were several other showings throughout the weekend and they wanted to wait for those to be done with before making a final decision. Turns out they did end up getting another offer and maybe potentially two more. My client had already offered what was a good offer. They offered full price, they were offered cash, good terms. And so initially their instincts were, I'm not changing it. I don't want to get into a bidding war. Say 15 grand. Now here's the tricky part. 15 grand sounds like a crazy, insane, overpriced offer if it wasn't priced right in the beginning. But in this case, based on what my client was seeing in the market and based on how many showings they had in the first day, this realtor knew what they were doing and they priced aggressively. And by aggressively, I mean they priced it well enough to get enough people excited about coming in the doors. So I gave my client a couple different options. I said, okay, great. We don't have to do this bidding war if you don't want. But hear me out. I have a couple questions for you. If this property were priced 15 grand higher, would you have still gone and seen it? And have you seen properties that were 15 grand higher that were better than this one? And if we look at the market, MLS or Zillow right now, at that 15K over price point, will we find a better property than this in the location you want with all the things you want? Secondly, can you afford to go 15 over even if you wanted to? And lastly, if you were a seller and you got an offer but had 5 other showings left and other offers coming to the table, would you just accept the first one or would you want to negotiate that? Would you feel that maybe your house was underpriced and people are willing to pay more? Chances are the answer is probably yes. So it's really hard not to be emotional about this, but these are the questions that I am asking my buyers. And in this specific scenario, we had seen so many other properties and this was the ideal location for her. Not only that, but this property also had upgrades that a lot of the other properties didn't have. And she was looking at houses already that were 50K more than this one, that were not even as good as this one. And after calming down a little bit, my client actually said, you know what? I knew that this listing was probably underpriced. And my response was, the realtor did just the right job to bring people in to be excited about this property and willing to fight for it. And also, they felt good about paying more because they felt that that property was worth it. So basically, my client agreed that if the property were at that higher price to begin with, she would still be looking at it and still be ecstatic to write a stellar offer on it because it's worth it. So instead of getting emotional about what the bidding wars are getting you into and just pulling yourself out of the rink because you think the bidding war is getting out of control, take a step back and see, okay, is this property actually worth what I'm going to offer? And compare it to what else is on the market and what else you've seen. And can you afford it? The listing price is just the listing price, but what people are willing to pay for it is what actually sets the price of the home. So instead of worrying about being in a bidding war, just decide if the property is worth what you're willing to pay. At the end of the day, we got under contract and now she is ecstatic and she's very, very grateful that her emotions didn't get in the way of her not getting the property she wanted.